Hey everybody, this is Kyle with attackofthefanboy.com, and this is Quake Champions. It's an upcoming shooter. It's going to be free to play from id and Bethesda. If you are a fan of the old series, I'm sure you've been following this. It's really exciting to see this series come back in a big way. They do have a lot of changes in store, including the different characters that you're seeing on screen right now. Each of them has a very unique ability that you charge up throughout the match, and you can use multiple times. In terms of microtransactions, because this is free to play, there are a few. You need to unlock each of the characters, but you can also rent them with in game currency that you earn throughout the game. The figures that you see in here are temporary. This is a closed beta, it's been going for a couple of weeks. There's no set release date right now. We just know later 2017. So this is really a work in progress. We're not anticipating that this is anywhere near what we'll see in the final game. But the characters that I tried were really cool. I got to buy one and rent a couple throughout my time in the game, and I actually earned a lot of credits as I played so that I could rent a few at different times because you only get them for 24 hours when you rent it with the in-game currency. There's also obviously loot boxes, the multiplayer choice of the year that you see in everything. So you can customize these characters with a bunch of different cosmetics. You can buy loot boxes, you can earn loot boxes, all the usual stuff that you expect from these sorts of games. But what makes Quake Champions stand out is that it is a Quake game. And it really does harken back to those older games. I admittedly did not play those older games, but I'm very familiar with them. But essentially, it is a extremely fast-paced Twitch arena shooter. Weapons are on the map. You get a couple of choices to start out, but the main weapons, the good weapons, are all scattered across the map. There's power ups across the map, there's health pickups, there's armor pickups, all that sort of stuff in these classic shooter gameplay types that you're used to seeing, but that have really drifted away in most of the modern shooters. So that's back. The Quake styling is back, and I am terrible at this game, as you'll see. I do actually pretty well in this initial deathmatch game, but later on is Duel, which I'll explain a little bit. I'm terrible at it. I feel like this was probably one of my best games overall. I am awful at this game because it is just so different from a lot of the shooters that you play these days. It's not a Call of Duty or a Battlefield or a Halo. It's a very old school shooter where you have massive field of view. I think my field of view is 130. I mean, I've set that on some shooters, but it was default here. It just loaded up and it was full maxed out field of view, and everything's just so fast. You're just running around the map. Now that depends on your character. I actually chose some of the slower, more powerful characters in terms of their health and armor, which is a big thing that you really do need to consider about these different characters is not only their ability but also their stats. So you need to keep that in mind when you're picking. But I did play a team game, and I wouldn't say that you need to really balance your team, at least for deathmatch. I'm sure that there'll be some other modes on top of this deathmatch that we see in the beta, but as it stands now, you can pretty much just choose whichever character you're going to play best as. Each match starts with this sort of warm up that you can just kind of run around and shoot each other and kind of get the feel of how the game is going to play and how your opponents are going to play. But once the game starts, it's just fast, crazy action. You're just running around getting slaughtered or slaughtering other people. The big thing in this map is right in the middle on that ramp is a quad damage that spawns periodically. You'll actually get a countdown that announces when it's close to spawning, so everyone kind of rushes that because if you're doing 4 times damage with some of these weapons, you're going to take people out in one hit. So it actually is a big benefit for you if you can get that. But then, of course, if you get killed, which you are a massive target at that point, then you drop it and your enemies can pick it up, and then you're in trouble. So, just playing this game was a lot of fun. It's definitely not my kind of shooter. It's not something that I got into, when I was a kid. But it was cool to just be able to see this game take that old styling and modernize it with the different champions and stuff like that. It looks great. It didn't blow me away in terms of the visuals. This is on ultra uh, at 1080p. I think I actually was using super sampling, so it's probably rendering a bit higher than 1080p. But it looked good and it ran well, which is the big point that you need with a game like this. You need solid frame rate and perfect performance, which this had even in this beta form. So I'm thinking that the final release is going to run exceptionally well. And it was a lot of fun. It was cool messing around. Again, it's really not my kind of game. If I'm using the sniper, I'm terrible with it. But it sold me on it. I mean, I don't know that I'm going to put hundreds of hours into it myself, but I definitely see how somebody would, especially if they're just a fan of Quake and this style of shooter. I mean, you've been starved for content if this is what you have been wanting from your shooters. So this is going to be a huge boost for you. Now, the duel, which comes in later, is a bit different than deathmatch. This is standard deathmatch. The team deathmatch plays the exact same, except there's two teams. Duel, you choose 3 different champions, so you have to have 3 unlocked, either permanently or by renting, in order to play that mode. And then you draft your character. So it seems like a random coin flip. It's either you or your opponent will pick their first character, and then you pick your character, and it alternates like that. So you can kind of choose ones that counteract. Obviously, as I have said multiple times, I was terrible. I lost every single time. Didn't kill him once. So you don't get to see that, but you get to see what happens when you're on the losing side, which is that you die and you get to spawn as your second character and then your third character, and whoever kills the other player 3 times wins that round. It's best of 3. So it's a cool little mode. 1v1 didn't work too well on some of the maps here. They were a bit too big. There was a lot of time spent just kind of running around. There's no radar or anything, which is probably for the best, but when the maps are kind of made for 8 or more players, there was a fair bit of time where we were just kind of running around, and I would hear him in the distance, but there's 3 layers, which was fun. The verticality here was really cool. But, figuring out where the enemy is, it's sort of something that you need to learn. So I didn't know how to do it, so it didn't work very well for me, but maybe after a little while. And you really have to change your strategy. If you notice, I'm starting to pick up that you need to break away and, run and get armor and health when you're injured. It's been broken for me with more contemporary shooters like Call of Duty and Halo and Battlefield, where it's like, no, if I, escape a battle, that's it. I just need to wait a while and my health will recharge. But here, if you get into a fight with somebody and they get a few shots in you, you need to go and find health. So that different strategy was something that I needed to relearn from older shooters. But once it did, it kind of helped out a lot. But overall, I mean, this was definitely fun. It was definitely interesting. It's looking good. It's looking solid. Overall, I'm not just like dying to get back into this game, but I think if you were a Quake fan or you're a fan of more old school shooters like this, then you're going to enjoy it. The changes in terms of the characters, the heroes, might put a few people off, especially with the microtransactions and the free-to-play elements that are working their way in. But they've done a good job of working them in without doing too much damage to that core gameplay. Ignore the fact that I killed myself, please. Yeah, I think that they did about as well as could be expected with something like this. And the character powers were actually really cool. You just saw somebody who's more of a stealth character go invisible, and I used that at one point. It was kind of cool to just be able to get away from combat if I needed to, or try to sneak up on somebody. Most of my powers worked better in terms of offense, or I've got one that puts up a shield, and that worked pretty well for me. But that's me just learning how to play the game. But I think overall, it was a lot of fun. It's shaping up really well, especially this early in terms of the beta. So there's a lot of room for improvement, but I think that they're definitely open to it. They've issued a couple of surveys asking for input. So I think once this is really ready for release, we'll see that they did a good job with it. So Quake Champions, looking good so far. Enjoy the rest of the gameplay, including my terrible duel match. But visit attackofthefanboy.com for more on Quake Champions, including my written impressions over there. And we'll just keep following up with this game as it gets closer to release later into 2017. Again, that was attackofthefanboy.com. Thanks for joining.
Quad spawned. Enemy has the quad. Crush them! Party breaker. Quad damage. Killing spree. Enemy has the quad. Enemy has the quad. They're pushing too hard. Roadkill. It was a good day. The battle is dragging. Quad spawn in 15 seconds. Your efforts are wasted. Quad spawn. Enemy has the quad. Enemy has the quad. Party breaker. Quad damage. Excellent. Lead taken. This is going to. Enemy has the quad. Enemy has the quad. Lead tied. Enemy has the quad. Roadkill. Party breaker. Lead taken. Quad damage. Lead tied. 1 minute warning. Lead taken. Lead tied. Lead taken. Lead tied. Crush them. Lead taken. Lead tied. Lead lost. Quad spawn in 15 seconds. You lose. Prepare for draft. Enemies pick. Your pick. Your pick. Your pick. Enemies pick. Enemies pick. Your pick.
Who's ready for a fight? They're pushing too hard. I will lead the way.
Prepare to fight. Round begins in 3, 2, 1. Round 1, fight. 5-minute warning.
Crush them.
The battle could be going better. Where am I?
I must protect. Defense systems initiated.
Round 1 complete. Prepare to fight. Round begins in 3, 2, 1. Round 2, fight. Tank. 1 minute warning. 10.
You have no power here.
Prologue. Round 2 complete. You lose.